All right, good morning. So today's a busy day. I'm sure that most of you have many questions. I will definitely give you a chance to ask those questions. I'm going to say a few things for a little while, which will definitely answer some of those questions. So where to start? Let's see. A reminder that you can click on CTOD type, and you can CTOD type. So take advantage of that, because I'll be spending most of my time today here. I had asked you all to go ahead and get a Top Hat account. I am certain that probably fewer than half of you have that. That's fine. I'm going to click on this. Let me see, they've changed the interface here since I last used it, so let me minimize and keep open. I'm going to do that. Alright, so what you would do, I think if you, I don't know, what does it look like on your end? For those of you that have it, I see that one person did something, two people did something. What are you doing that on? Is there an app? Are you looking at the Top Hat web page? Are you doing the texting? What are you doing? It's on the browser?
Yeah.
All right. So you just go to Top Hat and it kind of shows that to you? All right. So don't sweat that. As I said, I'm certain that very few of you have this right now. I generally start it and I would typically come here. Oops. Do that. That way I don't have to keep that open on my screen. So there's that. I have this thing, which is Ask Todd Anything. Just bear with me while I stumble through this. This has definitely changed since I have last done this. Alright, I think I am safe to do this. Now the idea here is I'm hoping that that is anonymous. Someone just type something here so that I can see what it looks like. Alright, so it is anonymous. So I am going to endeavor to have this up every period, and while I'm talking I will try and look at this several times during any class period where I'm lecturing, like right now, so that you can feel free to ask questions anonymously. Now, what I would say is, look, we're all friends here. You have nothing to worry about. Just raise your hand. Don't even raise your hand. Just shout out a question, and I'll answer it. So I would much prefer, it's just expedient for you to ask questions. However, I'm with you. If for whatever reason you're afraid the question is dumb or something like that, you know what they say. There's no such thing as a smart question. No, wait. There's no such thing as a stupid question. But I understand if you're reticent to ask particular questions, so that's why I have this available for you to ask things anonymously. So take advantage of that during the semester. I may very well forget one thing or another. Just remind me if I've forgotten to throw like this up or the CTOD type up. So there's that. Where does that get us? All right. So I think that gets us to the command line. Two things I wanted to talk about are giving you enough information so you can do baby steps here, and a little bit of information on the editor we'll be using called Vim, which you would have seen if you dived into the first lab, I think. First or second lab for that matter. I know that many of you were installing Vagrant, and to hear Caleb's tell it, about half of you had no issues at all, and half of you, the thing didn't work. On Piazza, he did email me, and I kind of posted a synopsis of what he emailed me. Let me go to that. I did that in Piazza. If you have registered yourself in Piazza and you are not receiving notifications when there are posts on this, then you got issues with your email. You might want to work through that. What did I do? So I posted this, problems running Vagrant. I'm not going to go through it right now. The short answer is you need to upgrade PowerShell. That's usually the cause. Yes?
PowerShell is upgraded to 5.1.
And it's still screwing up? Have you tried running as administrator? So he thought that might also solve issues, although strictly speaking you shouldn't have to do that. All right, well, Caleb will, are you in the Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday? All right, well, if we don't have it worked out before then Caleb will certainly wrestle with you then. Yeah, it's discouraging to hear that. What version of Windows are you running? All right. Well, we'll see what Caleb has to say about that. And I'll also do some research on my own. My problem is I actually don't own a physical Windows machine, so it's hard for me to kind of test and debug this stuff ahead of time.
It says 1809.
1809? Does it say Windows 10 or Windows 7 or anything like that? Windows 10. All right. You had 5.1 or you had to upgrade to 5.1?
I have 5.1.
Darn it. Yeah, that is frustrating. All right. Yeah, hopefully we can get it worked out on Thursday. There's another issue which I will make clear. Yes, I will talk about this shortly, which is also in Piazza. So in Piazza, there's a question about you used Vagrant, you got in there, you did the whole thing of creating directories and creating first.txt, then you couldn't find it, and I suggested doing this, then you would find it. I will talk about that as well. I just need a few minutes to kind of ease into that. All right. So I'm going to delete this because I'll definitely answer that before the period's out. Okay. I may use the terms Linux and Unix interchangeably. I may use one or the other. They should be considered interchangeable, certainly as far as we're concerned. I'm not one to talk about the history of computing, but to give you 15 seconds of it, Unix came first. It's been around since the 70s, I guess, in one form or another. Linux came after, and it first was born in the very early 1990s. And Linux has, in essence, taken over the world as far as that's concerned. There's still Unix around. Unix tends to be proprietary, owned by companies like, well, what would have been AT&T. I don't know who would own it now. Anyway, that's not important. The bottom line is they're, for all intents and purposes, they're the same thing. They're multi-user operating systems, meaning that they were designed from the very, very beginning to have multiple users using a physical piece of hardware at the same time. And back in the day, you would have one of those big old deep CRT terminals, right? The black with the green writing on it. And that terminal, it was called a dumb terminal because there wasn't any intelligence to it. There wasn't an operating system on it. Its whole purpose was to connect to a machine that could support multiple users, right? And so that's how multiple users would do it. My first job actually was doing that exact thing. So, this is to contrast it with, say, Microsoft Windows, which is certainly multi-user now, but it was originally created as a single-user operating system. All right. The Linux operating system does have a graphical user interface, and what I mean by a graphical user interface, or a GUI, is this kind of thing where you have windows and icons and folders and you can drag and drop. However, all of that in the Linux world sits on top of what I would say is this stuff, this text-based interface. Unix was a text-based operating system long before it was a graphical operating system. So, how do they compare? There are actually a lot of parallels between working around in this text-based system and working around in the graphical system. So let me do this. All right, let me bring up this. Oh, I did this before class. So let me pause and talk about this for just a moment, in case you're curious. I created a file called studentbreakdown.txt. Let me actually drag this back up. Let me look at that. Two of you are computer animation game development. 6 of you are computer engineering. There are 3 CIS students, SINS students in here. 23 of you, the majority of you, are computer science. I was actually a little bit surprised. It seemed like so many of you were mechatronic. But as it turns out, there are only 12 mechatronics students in here. 2 of you are electrical engineering. I lumped these together. I'm not sure what the difference between credential, path, and just straight math ed is, but there's 2 of one, 2 of the other, so a total of 4 of you. 2 of you in some form of mathematics, 5 mechanical engineers, and 1, whoops, I guess there are actually 6. Is that right? 6 mechanical engineers? I guess so. So that's the breakdown in this course. So to the extent that people in the same major give you security, seek those folks out. All right. Now, in the graphical world, how do I... So let me give another term. We would normally be referring to these as folders in the graphical world. In the text world, I'd be referring to them as directories. So if I say directory, think folder, same thing. All right. Actually, let me go up so I'm at the same level. All right. How do you see what's in a folder or what's in a directory? In the graphical world, obviously, that's trivial. You just open your eyes and look. How you see it in the text world is ls. ls stands for, let's see, I need to, what do I want to call this? Command line.txt. ls directory listing. So what this is showing is I have 2 directories and a normal file. That's what we see right here. How I get into one of these directories or one of these folders is I just double click on them. So here, instead to move down into a directory, I use cd. That is change directory. And I give the name of the directory I want to change into. Whoops, I got a typo in there somewhere. cd to, there we go. Now I can see what's in that directory, and we can see I have 2 files, and that matches what I see graphically, 2 files. All right? No surprises? What if I want to create another folder or create a directory? in the graphical world, what I would do is I'd right click or control click or pull some menu item down. There are a variety of ways, but basically you would say new folder, and I'd give it a name. I'll call that folder 1. Now here, how can I see if folder 1 exists? What's my command? ls, and there it is. As a little side note, the folders or directories are conveniently colored blue here. What does it look like on this little? Yeah, they're shown blue here. A little harder to read. But that's not necessarily the case. It turns out that the color of things is entirely configurable. So on one Linux machine it may look blue, on another one it may look green, on a third one there may be no coloring at all. It all depends on how the system was configured. So just throwing that out. So we saw how to create a folder. We saw how to create a folder here. We all know how to do that. How you do it here is mkdir, which is make directory. So I'll call this make directory folder 2. And now when I hit the enter key, if you look up at the top of the screen here, you'll see that it appears. Okay, so we have a lot of one-to-one correspondence between what you're accustomed to in the graphical world and what we would do at the command prompt. Yes? Yes, it is. So Linux as an operating system is entirely case sensitive. I caveat that slightly because even though the Macintosh, in my case, or in your case if you have a Mac, even though the Mac has Unix under the hood, they've actually tweaked it to make it not case sensitive. So it can sometimes throw you for a loop on the Mac. But by and large, as a general proposition, yes, absolutely, it is case sensitive. All right. You've seen me clear the screen a couple times, so that's just clear. In the graphical world, what if I want to go up to what I would refer to as the parent directory? So here, what I have to do on the Mac is I control click on this little title bar here, and it shows me the folder and folder and folder kind of stuff. And if I wanted to go up one, I just simply take my mouse and go up one. How do you do it here? Let's see, what do I want to say? Path name semantics. Two dots means the parent directory. So cd dot dot takes me up to the parent directory. Now if I do an ls, we will see that that certainly matches what I have here. You'll notice in my case that my prompt here, it has a prior to the $sign. It's showing me what my current directory is. That's another thing that is entirely configurable, and it'll be different from machine to machine. So I haven't talked about the department server, but let me just very briefly get in there just to show the difference. Let me clear the screen, and you'll see that that prompt looks entirely different. All right, so let me get out of there. All right. So you can't necessarily depend on what you see here to know which directory you're in. So there is a command. This is print working synonymous with current directory. So if I type pwd, that shows me that I am inside 111F19. And you can see that this is something else that hopefully that you are accustomed to in the graphical world. This stuff's all hierarchical. You can create folders inside of folders inside of folders. That's what's being shown here. And of course, the different directories are separated by a slash by convention. So if you're in the Windows world and you're accustomed to a backslash, you've worked at the DOS prompt or in the PowerShell or something like that, and they all use the backslash in there, you would have noticed probably at some point, maybe scratched your head, maybe not, that when you're dealing with the web and URLs use forward slashes. Why do you think they use forward slashes in URLs for the web? Just hazard a guess. And why not backslashes?
I think it's a directory. Or not a directory, but like a file path.
Yeah, well, yes, absolutely. It's like a file path, but why not backslash? Why do you think they chose forward slashes and not backslashes?
They use like Linux servers.
Yeah, the whole thing was invented in the Unix world, right? The web is a Unix, or it came out of researchers who were steeped in Unix. And so that's why you have forward slashes for that. Why did, so Unix was alive and well when DOS was invented. And why did they use backslashes? To be different, I guess. Just creates a huge hassle. Now we've got, in the Windows world, it's backslashes, and everywhere else it's forward slashes. But you can thank Bill Gates for that. So let me do an ls. I'm going to go back down to where we are working today, 2019, August 28th. Here, where's my, let's double click. Let me make those both visible. Let me clear the screen and do an ls. Okay, there are those four things there. I can go down into folder 1 by saying cd. Folder 1. Let me do the same over here. Let me double click. And now I'm going to create a file. Now I haven't talked about the editor at all, and I'll talk about that towards the end of the period. I just wanted to get something in there. All right. So in my editor, I created a simple text file. We can see it appeared here in folder 1. Question is, how do we move this from folder 1 to folder 2? How do we do it graphically? Probably what we would do is something like this. We would take, oops, hang on. If we're in the graphical world and I had folder sample file.txt in folder 1, I'd probably open up 2 windows like this, and then I'd grab this and I'd drag it over to folder 2. Yeah? Okay, how do we do the same thing in the text world? The command to move a file is move. I'm going to say /directory. You can move a file or a directory this way. So there's a sample file. I want to move it. Now where is, so I'm in, let me actually do pwd, see where I am. And let me zoom in here, clear the screen, pwd. All right, so I'm inside of folder 1. Inside of folder 1 is sample file.txt. So I'm actually inside of here. What I need to do is go up to 2019-08-28 and then back down to folder 2. Right, this is a hierarchy, yeah? So I'd have to move sample file.txt up to the parent, meaning up to here, 2019-08-28, and then down into folder 2. And we should see, let me actually go into folder 1 right now. Here it is. And as soon as I do this command, it disappeared from folder 1. Let me go up to the parent. Let me double click in folder 2, and there it is. All right. There's sometimes a need to deal with the current directory. If the parent directory is 2 dots, then the current directory is just 1 dot. And actually, the current directory is always assumed. For instance, take this move command that I just did right here, move sample file.txt. An equivalent statement would be for me to say move from my current directory, I want to move sample file.txt into folder 2. Okay, so that in the current directory thing is always assumed if I don't specify it. Now, out of curiosity, what do you think will happen if I hit enter right now?
An error.
Yep. So how can I move into folder 2 now? How can I change my directory to folder 2? One of the things you'll notice is that it works silently, meaning that if it works correctly, you get 0 feedback. Okay. That is because this is an operating system that was obviously written by programmers, but more importantly, it was written for programmers. And if you're a programmer, the very key thing is efficiency. You don't want the operating system to waste your time, and it wastes my time for it to give me attaboy every time I do something correctly, right? So if you get no feedback at all, it worked fine. Now let me give you another example of that. Here's my sample file. I can delete a file with rm. Rm means remove file. I'm going to throw in another one. rmdir is remove directory.
So what do you mean by feedback?
What do I mean by feedback?
Yeah.
I'll give you an example of that right now. All right. In the graphical world, if I want to throw this away, I've got some sort of trash can to throw it into. Let me create a duplicate. Can I duplicate this? Duplicate. Let me do an ls. Ah, there it is. All right. So if I want to throw this away, I come over here and I throw it into the trash. And then what do I want to... But it hasn't really gone anywhere, right? If I need to get it back, I can get it back. Okay. And then how do I get rid of it completely? All right, let's try that. This is infuriating to a programmer. Why the hell is it asking me? I know what the hell I'm doing. If I didn't want to delete it, I wouldn't have selected empty trash. This is an example of that feedback that you're accustomed to getting as a user that you never get when you're sitting at the command prompt. And really, we all know this doesn't do any good, right? Because what happens is when you do something enough, it's all muscle memory. How many of you have ever done something, maybe not empty trash, but some other process where the dialogue that you've seen a million times comes up and you blindly do this, and there's that one time where you didn't, but you clicked it anyway, and after the fact you went, ugh. All right? It doesn't do any good because you just get in the habit of doing it. All right, so how does it work when you remove a file here? Remove sample file.txt. Did it give me any feedback? No. You may have seen it removed from right here. It is gone. There's no trash can. There's no way to get it back. There's no magic utility that's going to bring it back for you. It is gone because you're a programmer and you know what you're doing, and the operating system is going to do whatever you tell it to do. Now, is all loss? Have people deleted things by accident? Absolutely. But that's what system administrators are for. So what system administrators do is they create backups of the file system. They may do it hourly or daily. And if you accidentally delete something you didn't want to delete, you just contact them and say, hey, can you pull this file off of backup? I accidentally deleted it, or I corrupted it, or something like that. Okay. The same thing goes for let me actually create my sample file again. Let me go up to the parent. Let me do an ls. I'll go ahead and repeat that here graphically. Oops, went too far. All right, 2 files, 2 folders. 2 files, 2 folders. I'm going to call this my important work. All right, then we clear the screen. Let me do an ls. I'm going to do a, let me actually go over a different command. So move not only means move, but it also can mean rename. It doubles as rename. How do I rename something? Let me rename important work. So you use the move command, but what you're saying implicitly is move from my current directory. I want to move important work.txt. And where do I want to move that? I want to move it to my current directory, and this is the name that it will have. Okay, so that's kind of conceptually what's happening. If it wasn't the current directory and is going somewhere else, we would have specified where it was going. It's unforgiving, just like remove. So if I say move, let me clear my screen, do a courtesy ls. Let me, here, this is the file I'm working on called commandline.txt. So let me move command, actually let me quit out of this. All right. Move command line.txt to still important. I'm about to overwrite still important. Same thing. So command line.txt disappeared, and now it's still important. What happened to my original still important file? It is gone. Okay, you don't get any, are you sure you want to do this? Because you're a programmer, you are sure, so it'll do it, right? I've just replaced it. If I look at it, there it's all that. Of course, I don't want that, so I'm just going to move it back. We can create a copy of things. I did that duplicate here. CP is copy. CP is copy file. So I can say copy command line dot text to whatever. My name may look a little funky. Just letting you know, strictly speaking, file extensions mean absolutely nothing in Unix or Linux. You can have as many periods as you want. You can make the extension whatever you want. As far as the actual operating system is concerned, it's just a file. It doesn't matter. So by us putting txt or doc, things like that for Unix, that's more for our benefit. Now, I do have to concede that some applications do look at that, but I just want to emphasize that as far as the operating system is concerned, it doesn't matter. Right? Probably the only character that you probably don't want to put in a file name is a slash, for an obvious reason, because the slash is used to break apart directories. All right. I don't need that whatever. Where is it? Is it here? Yeah, there it is. We'll put it up here. And then I will remove whatever, and it's gone. Okay, let me see, am I missing anything? I think that's it. That's the basics. Now let me talk a moment about the vagrant stuff. So I would have said vagrant init Todd A. Gibson for, thank you. I had to think a minute. And I wasn't thinking. I was just sitting there. That was the interesting thing. Okay. I think as preamble I said, create a directory for your 111 work and then make sure you're in that directory when you run this command. Right? All right. So I'm pretending here that all of my 111 work is going to be in 2019-08-28. And if I do an ls, we can see that I've got all this stuff we've been working on. Then I can say vagrant up. This will take a moment. Again, there's one before this, which was vagrant box add. That was the command that would actually grab the machine off the web, and that would take a while. Yes?
Should we not put like spaces in our folder or file names? Because then when you're like typing it out, it might think it's like, does that matter?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So spaces are certainly allowed in names of files and folders or directories. However, it's recommended that you don't do that because if I say, let me actually create a file. All right, so there's a single file right there. Okay. If I want to say move 1 to file do, and I want to move it into folder 1, and then what it thinks I'm saying is it's thinking that I have 1, 2, 3, 4 different files that I want to move into folder 1. And the way around that, now can I make it work? Absolutely. I just have to put it in double quotes, and then it'll work. However, it's a huge hassle to do that. So yes, you'll notice that I've been like using underscore. That's kind of the typical surrogate for a space. Another common way is what's referred to as camel case. You do something like folder 3, where you use an uppercase letter to delineate between words. All right, let's see. Where is this going? Okay, this is finished. And then I said in order to get into your machine, you type vagrant SSH. And now I'm inside of my virtual machine, and you'll even notice the prompt is a little different. The virtual machine has a virtual file system, and any work you do in that file system is invisible to, in my case, my Macintosh or your PC. Will be unable to see anything you create in that virtual file system. However, there is, what it did, to use the correct terminology, is that virtual machine mounted one of your host machine's directories. By host machine, I mean your actual PC or your actual Mac. You're mostly doing this with a PC. So one of the directories on your PC has been mounted, which means it is visible from within this virtual machine. That directory is the one you were in when you typed vagrant init. Okay, in my case, it was the 2019-08-26 or what 28. How you get to it is you have to go cd/vagrant. Now let me do an ls. So whenever you do vagrant SSH, the very first thing you should do is cd/vagrant, because that's going to put you into the directory that is part of your PC. And any work you do in there is going to be visible from your PC. And now if we go back to what I suggested you do here, I assumed that you did vagrant SSH and then you started going through the lab and you created a directory called labs and you created stuff under that. And what I'm having you do is I'm having you move that directory and everything underneath it into the /vagrant directory. Okay. The last bit of information regarding directories is that I said that when you're doing move or copy or any of those, or even CD, that there's always an assumption that you're starting in your current directory if you don't specify otherwise. Let me actually type pwd. Yeah, that's not interesting. I'm going to exit out of here. Pwd. All right. So you'll notice that I'm pretty far down. There are all sorts of directories inside of directories. This entire hierarchy begins with a slash, and that's what's called the root directory. And we can actually look at that. I can say ls/ to see what's in the root directory. And there's that kind of stuff in the root directory. Normally, your account does not start in the root directory, but it actually starts in, it depends on the machine. This is entirely configurable by the system administrator or whatever the machine is that you got by default. On the Mac, it's usually in users. You'll have some sort of user ID. It's going to be, I don't know, where is it on the PC? Anyone? Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's not. It's going to be somewhere down, like in users or home or something like that. That's what's referred to as your home directory. Now you can get to the home directory. How I can get to my home directory is I can type cd ... that takes me up to 111F19 /... takes me up to courses /... takes me up to Chico /... Now I'm in what's called my home directory. That's an inefficient way, and I never do it that way. Before I talk about the more efficient way, let me give you one more trick. CD, a dash, or a hyphen, or what do you want to call it, takes you to the directory you were just in. So the directory I was just in was this one right here. Whoops, not that one. This one right here. This is the directory I had been in. So CD hyphen is going to take me back there. Now, what was my previous directory that I was just in? My home directory. So if I say CD dash, it takes me home, right? So this toggles back and forth between your two most recent directories. A nice shortcut, because often you are working between two directories. So let me actually put that in here.
What are the colors of the directories mean?
The colors are entirely configurable. So they don't really have it. I can't say definitively that blue means this and pink means that because it depends on the machine. For my case, there are some special features to this temp directory, to this var directory, that cause it to get a different color. You wouldn't necessarily see that depending on the installation you're looking at. Let's see. So dash is previous directory. All right, how do you get home? CD, if I just hit enter without anything, it assumes you want to go home. When you type vagrant SSH, you start in the home directory of that virtual machine. If you were to log into Jaguar, which I haven't talked about, don't have time to, it's going to have to wait. Whenever you log into some Linux machine, you're in the home directory. Nowadays, when you boot into your Mac or you boot into your PC, even they have a concept now of the home directory. Okay, and that just means the base directory where you do your work, and typically you have full permissions on that. And you can create as many folders underneath that and create files in it and so forth. All right. The last thing I want to talk about is the editor that we'll be using for this course. It's called Vim. Back in the day it was called VI. I think that just meant visual, maybe visual editor or something like that. In the last 20 or so years, VI's been subsumed by Vim. This is like the operating system. It is an editor that was obviously written by programmers, but most importantly, that editor was written for programmers. Okay. Oops. So let me bring this up. All right, it gives you, I've configured it to show line numbers on the left. You may have seen something about a helper script. That's one of the things it does, is makes it so that this editor gives you line numbers on the left. It has, oh man, I don't have a lot of time, 5 minutes. All right, so this is Vim baby steps. Yeah, we'll just say Vim stuff. You'll notice these tildes along the left side. All that means is that those lines do not exist in the file that I'm currently editing. That's all that means. Actually, I think I want to do it here. No, I'm going to do it like this. All right. There are two modes. Command mode. Anything you type is a command to do something. This is very different from something like Microsoft Word or any text editor you are accustomed to. Anything you type is inserted into the document. So note that this is different from, say, Microsoft Word in that there's no difference in mode. In Microsoft Word, anything you type always is going in to the editor, except they have some shortcut keystrokes like Windows C or Command C on a Mac is going to copy, that kind of thing. You'll note that I am going up and down. That's because I'm in command mode. My keystrokes are being taken as commands to move around. Once I'm in insert mode, anything I type goes into the document. How I get back and forth to get, when in doubt, to get into command mode, hit escape. In the upper left-hand corner, I can hit escape all day long. The first time it took me back into command mode. The rest is just redundant. To get into insert mode, let's see. There's so much I need. This is left. This is down, up, right. Why do you think those? That's very unintuitive. Why do you think they chose those 4 letters to go up, down, left, and right? If you're a touch typist, they're all in the home row, right? Okay, I have to concede this is a miserable editor to learn. You're going to be freaking out about if you don't have any experience in programming. There's going to be a little bit of a freak out happening. It's okay. You're going to have to use this command prompt, which you haven't used. It's harder than hell to get around and to remember all this crap. You have to use this editor, which is really alien and weird and hard and slow to use. And I'm throwing a new programming language at you, which is going to start next week. Yes?
Is that an uppercase O or a 0?
That, lower and uppercase O. I'm having to cut. I'm not going into detail on these because I haven't had time. So 2 things. One, I understand the freak out. Remain calm. I'm here to help. We'll get through this together. You will hit a point where this editor, you're comfortable in it. And in fact, you prefer it. I'll talk more about that later. The next thing is in, what is it? It's one of these. Where is it? I know it's in 2 places. Let me go to the C++ getting help because I know it's there, but I know it's somewhere else. Right down at the bottom of the C++ getting help, learning them. You have to spend at least half an hour on one of these. Just browse these sites, find one that's appealing to you, spend half an hour with it. Okay? So with that, we will see you in lab. For those who ask questions, we'll get to that. All right.